My parents really wanted me to get into IITs. Everybody wanted to shove me into that college. But I ended up, not getting into either. It is difficult to follow your passions. We raised 1.7 crores. And at that point, nobody in India had raised money that young. So that's my lesson number one. Hi everybody, my name is Varun Mayya and I'm super excited to be here at Josh Talks with you and tell you the story of my life. You see, the life of an entrepreneur is a difficult one. It's a very hard one, right? On some days, you feel like you're on top of a mountain. On other days, you just want people to leave you alone, right? It's very difficult. But I think over the last decade, over the last 10 years, I've had milestones and I've had learnings from those milestones. And I feel like anybody who goes down this path has those same learnings. So I feel like by doing this conversation, by having this conversation, I can share those learnings and probably save you some time, right? Or maybe you can get to those milestones and say, I understand now what Varun is saying. But I'm going to split this into 4 parts. I'm going to start this with my story and hopefully it's something that you will cherish. Part 1, I'm going to tell you the beginning. I'm going to tell you how it all started and why it started in the first place, right? So at the age of 7, my mother gifted me a computer. And you see, I didn't know what to do with the computer because nobody else had a computer at that time. My mom wanted me to use Excel and things like that, but I was just too young for it. What I really enjoyed was playing Road Rash. I remember, playing every game that came out back then, right? Prince of Persia, Road Rash, Dave, Mario. It might be unfamiliar to some of you if you're very young, but hopefully the people from my generation understand what I'm talking about, right? So for 5 years, I just played games. I really enjoyed playing those games. It helped me, especially because at that time, I was very isolated from everyone else. So they were my companions. But at the age of 13, I wanted to make a game by myself. And the main reason I wanted to do this is because I was tired of playing. I now wanted to be a participant. I wanted to make, right? And I wanted other people to play and enjoy the things that I created. So at the age of 13, I learned how to code. And the main reason I learned how to code was to make games. I did that for 3 or 4 years. I was very passionate about it only because I had the intention of having an output, right? I wanted to make a game. That was my goal. But as every young person in India now knows, it is difficult to follow your passions when there's a parallel story running. And the parallel story for my parents were the IITs. My parents really wanted me to get into IITs. And it's not just my parents, my relatives, my uncles, my aunts, everybody wanted to shove me into that college. But I wasn't having any of it. I didn't want it. But my parents, they wouldn't give up. 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade and 12th grade, they put me into tuitions, but not tuitions for school, tuitions to get into IITs, to pass that JEE entrance exam, right? And I remember not caring about it. Like I remember I was opening an organic chemistry book and I said, what's the purpose of this? What's the point? Right? I couldn't understand it. Whereas with games, I understood it. I'm going to make something, people are going to use it, people are going to like it, and maybe they'll pay me for it. Right? But with this, I had no idea where it was going to go. So I'm going to fast forward to the actual JEE exam, right? The joint entrance exam. The question paper was passed on to me and I blanked out. I had no idea what they were asking me to do. So what I did, the rational thing to do was to pick up that OMR sheet and I started doing Rangoli on it. Because what else do you do? And I think I passed out maybe after half an hour, right? Because nothing else to do. I didn't know any of the answers. And it's the same story with the BITS exam, right? The entrance exam. I didn't know what to do. I left early, in fact, right? And I remember my relatives shouting at me and saying, why did you do that? Your parents have worked so hard to put you into tuitions and you're paying them back by failing at both the exams that they wanted you to get into. Because in my parents' head, it was IITs, BITS, and failure, right? 3 options. But I ended up, not getting to either. Luckily, I ended up getting to the MIT. I ended up doing well at the MIT entrance exam, got in that college and had my parents off my back. It was hard, maybe 6 months because of all the pressure. But I'd also forgotten my skills, right? I'd also forgotten the skill of actually writing code and building games. But all that restarted in college in the first year when I met a few friends who also wanted to do this, right? Who also were creative and they were bored of the traditional college, right? So I went to them and I said, guys, let's start up. I'm telling you, that scene was right out of a movie. It was awesome fun. Over the next year, we actually printed t-shirts. We actually didn't do anything to do with code for the first year. We printed t-shirts, we put people's names on the back, but t-shirts were very high effort, very low reward. Because you make 15 rupees a shirt, but because we were putting the names of the person on the back, if somebody doesn't accept that t-shirt, doesn't like it, you've lost 350 rupees there. They'll want a refund, right? So we were not making too much money on the t-shirts. We said, hey, we're going door to door giving these. It's exhausting. Let's do something that's better use of our time. And that's when in the second year, somebody pointed me to Odesk, which today is called Upwork, which is a freelancing site. And I made my profile and I applied for certain jobs, right? I said, chalo, let's give it a shot. What do I have to lose? Because there were not too many game projects at that point, I actually applied for web design, right? There was this one client from Malaysia. He's running a Malaysian eye clinic and he wanted a website done. It was for $100. Today you might think $100 is not a big deal, but back then I really wanted pocket money. I wanted to see what would happen. So I actually made that website. I contacted him. I told him, see, I'm not very good with making websites. I'm just started learning it, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to give it a shot, right? And you don't have to pay me much. $100 is fine. For 1 month, I got the opportunity to learn that skill and also apply it parallelly in tandem, right? But the client was not done. Change after change after change after change. Even after a month, I wasn't done. It took multiple months for me to complete. But at the end, getting that $100 was a fascination for me because I made it on my own, right? It was independent. I didn't need a college system or a degree or anyone else to help me. I did it by myself. It was that feeling of independence I really loved. And all of that came from the skill I had, right? From the skill I learned. So that's my lesson number 1, right? For me, skills have always been something that has been critical. And I feel the first milestone, the first learning of my life is that I have to learn a skill that's relevant for the current age, right? It wouldn't be wise for me to learn something that worked, maybe pottery that worked 100 years ago, right? Maybe some people can do it as a hobby, but it wouldn't work so great for me. So I had to learn a relevant skill, right? And that's what I did with learning web design. Over the years, in fact, in the next couple of years, I went up from making $100 a month to actually making $150 an hour. We actually became one of the highest paid freelancers from Manipal. Not like there were too many, but we actually did a very good job of it, the 4 of us. And it's not just me, right? 3 other people had the same journey as me. So I'm not an exception. It's just that we all learned this together and we all applied it together. But they all had the same problem, which is that they actually hit a cap. At $150 an hour, you cap out. Because you don't have more than 24 hours a day, right? You cannot squeeze out an extra hour and do more work and make more money. And more importantly, we never did this for money. We did this because we wanted to have fun. We were bored of college. We hated the existing system, right? So we were not being challenged anymore because when you reach $150 an hour, there aren't too many projects you can do that will excite you anymore. You've learned everything there is to learn. So we wanted, in the name of challenge and also in the name of freeing ourselves from the cap, we needed to stop renting our time. And that brings me to lesson 2. Lesson 2, in the 4th year of college, the 4 of us, one of us obviously went ahead and decided to continue freelancing, ended up doing very well in life. But the other 3 decided, let's take a real risk. Let's stop renting our time, right? Let's try to become more than 24 hours a day and let's build a company, right? We wanted to build a company that replaces Naukri.com. We wanted to build a recruitment platform, and that's exactly what we did. In the 8th semester of college, we flew all the way to Delhi. I knew nothing about Delhi. I went without a sweater and it was very cold back then. But in the 8th semester of college, we ended up building this platform, and we also ended up raising our first round of venture financing. We raised 1.7 crores. And at that point, nobody in India had raised money that young. We actually raised money even before we got our degrees, right? And this time, the goal was to stop renting our time and build a product. Yeah, a product is something that you can manufacture unlimited amounts of. We did that very successfully. In 2016, that platform scaled to 4 million requests, worked with 1,500 recruiters, including Uber and Swiggy. I learned a lot about the recruitment space. And in early 2017, we sold it off to a New York-based company called Turn to Tech. Right? So this is a great journey. It's a great end for the journey as well. That's my second lesson. Eventually, you have to stop renting your time. Right? Having a job or making a certain amount of money per hour, you have a cap on it. Job has a monthly cap on it. Right? There's a certain amount of money you can make per month. You're renting your time, and that's it. That's where it ends. Right? And even with your freelancing, there is a cap on it. So to unlock that, we have to build a product. So lesson number 3, which is a very critical lesson, is eventually get other people involved. Now, I've always been doing this, right? Even when freelancing, even though we all did it individually, we all sat in a group and did it. Because it's tough. Being an entrepreneur is really tough. Right? There's always some crisis or the other. There's always some issue or the other. Not only do you need people around you for the emotional support, you also need people who can handle very specific departments. In the third year or the second year of JobSpire, it's not like I sat and did the recruitment, I sat and wrote the product, I sat and did the design. No, I had people I trusted, each one of those who handle their own part of the product, who handle their own part of the business rather. Right? And I feel like eventually you learn that. Once you build a product, you're just going to be like, I can't do all of these things by myself. I need other people to help me. And that's when you involve other people. That's when you invest in relationships, the people you trust who can handle departments that are critical for your business. And as you scale, you hire more people to handle these different parts. That's lesson number 3. So a little context. Right after I finished JobSpire, I started a company called Avalon Labs. And this time I did it without any venture financing. Me and my co-founders, we decided to go back to our freelance days, start a services company, but this time not do services ourselves. We'd get other people, we had managers, and very quickly, within a year and a half, we scaled to 50 employees. We had some fantastic talent. We had some fantastic clients across the world. And within a couple of years, we were doing very, very well. And we also had a lot of time to run experiments. We invested in some companies. We tried some crazy projects. And all this we were only able to do because we didn't have to answer to anybody else. It was a fun sort of experiment, but we did it because we had people we could trust who were running departments, running individual departments. So that sort of extends lesson number 3. Now, lesson number 4 is invest. And look, I'm not the biggest stock market investor, right? I don't put too much capital in the stock market. I'm not super experienced there. But what I mean is invest in products that can continue to churn, continue to do stuff for you while you're sleeping, right? Pajama Profit. So I wrote a book in 2018. It was a book about my freelance journey. It was published by Bloomsbury, right? The same guys that published Harry Potter. Even till today, many years down the line, it still gives me a paycheck every year. I don't do anything for the book, absolutely nothing. But it works and makes money for me in my sleep. And again, I wrote the book not with the intent of making money. I wrote the book with the intent of having fun. I said this would be a nice experiment. And even to today, it continues to generate revenue for me. The current company that I run is a venture-funded company. It's funded by some of the best investors in India. It's funded by some of the best funds in India. And the company, I have equity in it. Even if I don't appear, even if I'm sleeping for a week, the company continues to work for me, right? So invest in equity, which is, it could be your own equity, your own company. It could be somebody else's equity. It could be somebody else's company. Maybe you're investing in IPOs. Maybe you're investing in stock, in somebody that you believe in. But the goal is invest in potential. Whether it's my company or the book or somebody else's company, you're investing in somebody else's potential or your potential. So make sure you invest because, like I told you in the third point, right? You can get great people to work with you who you trust, but sometimes you might want to have structures that you put your trust into, right? And these structures, whether it be equity or bonds or ETFs or whatever it is, find the mechanism that works for you. Awesome. So I hope that over these 4 points, these are the milestones in my career. Every time I reached a cap, I would break through the roof and find a new cap. And maybe 2 or 3 or 5 years down the line, I will find more caps that I can continue breaking. So hopefully I'm back here in a year or two telling you what's changed and the new things that I've learned in my own story, because we're all students in the flow of life. Thank you guys, and thanks for having me. Bye.
क्योंकि आप जो स्टॉक्स देख रहे हैं, जाहिर सी बात है कि आप अपनी ज़िंदगी में आगे बढ़ना चाहते हैं। ये जाहिर सी बात है कि आप अपनी ज़िंदगी को सीरियसली लेते हैं, आप वो सारे स्किल्स एक्वायर करना चाहते हैं जिससे आप ज़िंदगी में तरक्की कर सकें, लोगों से आगे बढ़ पाएं। और अगर ये सच है तो जोश स्टॉक्स का ही एक ऐप है जोश स्किल्स, जहां एग्जैक्टली इसी चीज़ को करने के लिए बहुत ही खूबसूरत बहुत सारे कोर्सेज बनाए गए हैं। कोर्सेज जो लाखों स्टूडेंट्स ऑलरेडी ले चुके हैं। ये कोर्सेज स्पेसिफिकली सिर्फ एजुकेशनल नहीं है जहां आप एक्सेल स्किल्स, पावर पॉइंट स्किल्स और ये सब सीख सकते हैं, बल्कि लाइफ स्किल्स भी हैं जहां आप पब्लिक स्पीकर कैसे बना जाए वो सीख सकते हैं, आप कॉन्फिडेंस कैसे एक्वायर कर सकते हैं वो सीख सकते हैं, आप हेजिटेशन के बिना कैसे बोलें वो सीख सकते हैं, आप अपनी पर्सनालिटी कैसे डेवलप कर सकते हैं वो सीख सकते हैं। हर एक कोर्स में डेली क्विजेज हैं, एक्सरसाइजेज हैं, एक बहुत ही खूबसूरत कम्युनिटी है जो आपको सपोर्ट करेगी, आपको इनकरेज करेगी। तो अगर आपको ये टॉक पसंद आया हो, जोश टॉक्स जो करता है वो पसंद है, तो आपको जोश स्किल्स भी बहुत बहुत ही फायदेमंद लगेगा। आज ही डाउनलोड करें जोश स्किल्स का ऐप और उनके कोर्सेज एक्सप्लोर करके अपनी ज़िंदगी को